a young halfling carrying a big stick, the crossing of the mists has badly affected Amber. She's doing her best to adapt to a new life with the promise of her old home in Silverymoon ahead, but it hasn't been easy for her. Naive, inexperienced, and just trying her best, the contrast between Amber's upbeat optimism and very painful homesickness has not gone unnoticed.
A romantic soul that is seemingly searching for a great belonging, Icarus Varner is a half-elf distant traveller with ties to the nomadic Vistani. Having spent his life so far wandering in and out of lives, the sentimental poet seems to be curious of this new world and its inhabitants, but wary of the circumstances that brought them to the Dolian wastes. Nevertheless, Icarus's spirits are not dampened by the party's arrival into this new civilization. After all, poetry and prophecy go hand in hand.
Being a goblin, Meridian has learnt to hide the more monstrous features of his appearance from a disapproving world behind fancy clothes, well-trimmed mutton chops, and makeup. In this new realm, however, he's not quite sure what to make of being treated like royalty, but he's certainly not complaining. No matter what the future holds for him, he'll continue muttering to himself, clutching the mysterious bottle by his side, and mapping out the group's travels every step of the way.
Senna has a tendency towards evading questions and being a whisker away from death's door at every opportunity. She has maintained her position as the quietest member of the group, guarding her opinions closely to her heart. Though reticent to disclose anything, it's clear to see that the Dolian wastes have left their mark, and its effects aren't simply skin deep.
Tenacity, a warlock of the strangest kind, has shown a particular fascination for all things atypical, to say the least. Pursued by odd dreams or nightmares, his magic remains a mysterious but powerful force, and he seems in no great hurry to get home. Tenacity appears to be lured by the mysteries of this realm. What terrible secrets do these dreams hide, and what exactly lurks behind that friendly face?
And hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Heads or Tails, playing Silverymoon's Silent Scream.
Woo.
Before I get into the traditional last we left off sort of situation, there's a few quick bullet points I have to get through. Although normally we do these sorts of bullet points in the announcement section after the break, these are kind of important, so we're gonna get them going straight away. First things first. One of our players has called the COVID. Unfortunately, Beck is slightly ill, so
Oopsie!
because of that, we're going to be shortening the session a little, so it's going to end an hour early, and because of that, the break's also going to be a bit earlier than usual. It's just going to be a bit of a shorter experience, but we're still going to make the most of it as best as we can. And secondly, because it's because a lot of us aren't in their usual streaming and recording locations. A bunch of us might sound different, might sound a little worse than usual, or otherwise. I believe specifically Kit does not have the same microphone with him currently that he usually records with. So you might hear some differences in audio. Unfortunately, this is the best we can do, but it'll be fine, I'm sure.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I don't believe anyone else has any interesting comments they want to throw out, so I'm just going to go straight to the recap of last session. Last we left off, the party, having been in Chandea for a little over a day now, have begun exploring and have travelled over to Miss Getz's Biblis. On the road, they met a Willem, a slightly chubbier married man who talked about burning the currency that is used in Chandea, which are these sort of wooden coins which are minted using this specific burning technique. And had dropped them off at Miskits' Biblis, where they were going to see the archived and original version of the Aerem text, the mythical prophecy that their entire story revolved around, that they've been hearing about time and time again in their stay in this place. And they just arrived outside of the front of the establishment. I believe that is correct.
I believe that's correct as well.
Let me just do a secret thing in the background that nobody knows about. Okay. All right. Let's get going then. I feel. What would you like to do? I mean, are you just gonna walk inside, or?
I imagine as such.
Well,
Alright.
let's get this straight. What are we actually trying to accomplish, other than getting the original copy of the Aerem? Is there anything else that we need?
The Aerem.
Oh, fine. Sure. Let's get bogged down
Amber
by the
is going to
details.
use any excuse to frustrate Meridian.
We could look for some books about the surrounding region. They might have. I mean, if we're going to leave anyway.
Oh, that flower forest, for example.
Or especially things about Keep Rofin. That's where we should be.
Mm.
That's one of the places we need to look out for.
And other ruins where they might have, well, all sorts of things.
Potentially a guide on how to survive in the wastes. That could be useful. I mean, we're doing a pretty good job, but I wouldn't be opposed to knowing a little bit more about what might kill us if we eat it.
I think
Well-
we should take a look at anything behind a locked door.
Usually things behind locked doors are behind locked doors for a reason.
Exactly.
If it's
Yeah, like
locked
someone in the
behind-
privy or something, you know, like that's. So there's a reason why people might want a bit of privacy sometimes.
I mean, they shouldn't
Sorry,
keep
what?
anything locked away from us anyway. Let's just ignore. Unless you are actually wanting to go to privies.
No, I'm fine. I went before. So,
Going in?
Alright. Going in. As you move your way into the establishment, it's this long sort of hall almost that has these 2 rows of bookshelves in its center, creating these 3 separate pathways. It's surprisingly dark inside. The faint illumination does not actually reach far in through the window and leaves the hall in this sort of almost shimmering twilight state. You can see in the distance along the middle hallway there's a set of 3 little candles burning on what seems to be a small altar inside of here. There are 2 what seem to be like parts of a spherical dome made of what seems to be glass on both the left and the right hand side. Approximately halfway through these passageways there is a spiral staircase heading up on the left in the distance, the railings of one that you presume is going down on the other side of it. There's a door visible sort of halfway up the upward spiral staircase, sort of on a little plateau, attached to which is a large metallic padlock. There's a faint lingering, like, dust-like atmosphere. You walk a little further and you can tell a lot of the books have old covers and seem weathered with age, worn down by time itself.
I think Meridian will look over the library with like a slight smile, as this is probably the thing that he's
this is like something that he's actually familiar with in some ways. It's something that he's used to.
Did you say there was a padlock?
I did say there was a padlock. You are fully correct on that. You are fully correct
Okay.
on that.
Noted.
There is a door halfway up the spiral staircase heading upwards on this sort of like little plateau or like half floor, if you will, that is locked with a padlock. From a current glance, you cannot see any individuals in the room. What would you like to do?
Wait, are we in a room with books?
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
You
Okay,
are,
good.
you are, yeah. This is.
Are there any like prominently placed?
Not particularly, not from your current vantage point. You've just stepped inside. For as far as you can tell, currently there's just the primary bookshelves along the central path.
Amber is going to start walking down along past the bookshelves, looking for any that specifically catch her eye.
Alright. Interesting. The music's a little loud on my end. I'm not sure how it is for you guys. I'm going to turn that down slightly real quick. That should be better. Sorry. It's a bit hard to manage music when all of your tracks have a different innate volume. Yeah, no. As you're starting on your walk, you can see that some of the books have dates on them, or rather years, the years in which they were first published or first written or whatnot. At least that's what you presume. Why else would a book have a reason to have a date listed on it? Something you somewhat expected, though still did not expect sort of to be so obvious, is how even the worn and old books, even the worn and old books have years listed from well beyond your time. Listed 2542 DR, for example. Which is the distant past here. But 1,000 years your future.
There are a lot of spoilers here.
I think Meridian
It's
will also
look-
be looking over all the books and things, but instead of actually looking for anything in particular, he's just going to be muttering to himself in Goblin, critiquing their archival methods and organizational skills.
Can you actually roll me an intelligence or an investigation check, whatever you prefer, Meridian?
Of course.
You're using the Dolian decimal system.
I
Yeah.
know, right? Investigation.
That's a good one, Anna.
Thanks.
That's a total of a 10.
At a first glance, it's actually quite difficult to discern what organizational method they're using at all. At a quick...
No wonder he's insulting it.
Yeah. Exactly. At a quick glance, it does not seem to be alphabetical by title, and you can't seemingly discern a chronological order, but you can't see any signs that would indicate any thematic organization either.
Very unintuitive. I need to speak to whoever is in charge of keeping track of all of this. Out of interest, are there any books that have dates on them, on the covers or on the binding or whatever, that do match something before our own time? Anything that's as old as that?
You can try and look for them.
That's what I'd like to try and keep an eye out.
Alright. That's perfectly fine. Is there anyone else looking for anything else in particular? Anything noteworthy? Or...
Tenacity will look around the room for... Well, he'll look at all the different books for anything interesting. Okay, he would be looking for collections of folklore or yeah, I guess folklore kind of encompasses everything that he might be looking at. Local tales
All
or
right.
local historical accounts.
Before I continue with that, there is a cold, almost chilling breath of air that flows through the room, and you can hear the creaking of floorboards as someone's walking on one of the stairwells. It's impossible to tell which, but you can hear the creaking of the wood worn with age. It takes a moment, but this creaking eventually gets louder and louder, almost as if it's building up towards you. You can tell at this point they're not coming down the stairwell, they're coming up from the other one. Though you can't see this individual, they're behind a bookshelf from your perspective. They've not noticed your presence yet.
Wait, can everybody see this?
You can hear this. Everyone can hear this, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not much to see, physically.
How tall are the shelves of the books? The books of the shelves, the shelf books, if you will.
They're about 2.5 meters, or each individual shelf. No, I mean, because like the big quote unquote bookshelves are 2 to 2.5 meters. Yeah,
cool.
Those aren't easy to look over.
Yeah, well, especially not for Amber, who is barely 1 meter.
Exactly. No, yeah. You are out of your depth in books, drowning in them, if you will.
And the shelves themselves?
The shelves themselves, this is quick maths. I'm not great at quick maths.
Sorry, if you don't want to answer, it's not a massively important question.
They're about like 45 centimeters each. Let's see how well I did my math there. No, slightly less than that, sorry. It's more like 40 centimeters each. And
brilliant. All right.
And yeah, and there are 4 of them. So that's correct.
Okay. All right. Amber's mostly going to be searching the bottom shelves for this reason, it seems. At least the bottom 2. If I'm not mistaken, and I'm going to double check, I'm going to translate this to centimeters. Yeah, cool. If they're about 40 each, then Amber can reach reasonably the bottom 3 shelves. She is 100.
Fair.
Yeah, I just did the translation.
No, you're fair. No, that's fair.
I've had to Google this because I don't know how this works.
Don't worry. As someone
I lived in America and the UK. I should know, and I don't because it's stupid.
No, you lived in America and the UK. You should not know centimeters.
Oh, I mean translations between the two of them. But yeah, no, never mind. Anyway,
you've only had to use the one.
Amber's
You've never had to use centimeters.
Looking around there.
Oh well. Yeah.
There's a part of her that's quite curious. She might be looking for books on dreams. Though I don't. Who would know why?
Interesting. Alright, so Amber's looking for books for dreams, Meridian is looking for old stuff, Tenacity's looking for folklore, and no one's paying attention to the other person in the room. That makes a lot of sense.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I think Tenacity would be the one that would be first to notice this. The 2, like, glass dome parts that you'd seen from your entrance by sort of glancing past the bookshelves, the earlier rows. You can see now that you've made your way a little into the store through one of the like paths that leads to the side of the store, or to the side of this hall, I suppose, more so. They are like these relatively like sizable hemisphere domes of glass, and in them there are these like neat shelves which house a weird assortment of non-book items. They vary a lot. Not every item immediately seeming obvious for its a reason. There is an old rusted sword sort of leaning on its side against the back wall. There is a slightly weathered down fragment of blackish stone. There is this there's this like what seems to be this like figurine of a spider. Those are the first few that catch your eye. At a quick glance, it feels out of place here in what otherwise is a hall of books.
What was that last one, sorry?
A figurine.
You had, there was an old sword, a weathered fragment of black stone, and something else?
A figurine of a spider.
Does it have any magical vibes going on?
At a first glance, it's not very obviously magical.
Is it a simple spider, or is there like further detail to the figurine?
I mean, it might be more detailed if you get up close, yeah.
Yeah, he'll
Well-
get up close.
Yeah, it's just to clarify, it's not like each of these don't have their individual hemispheres. It's one big hemisphere that has like multiple wooden planks
These
on it.
artifacts
Right.
underneath it.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
Does it have like a information plaque?
yeah. For each of them there are tiny little bronze plaques.
What if they're like saint relics?
Oh my god.
What if they're things we left behind? That would be so epic.
Oh, wow. I don't recognize any of them, I think. Do I?
What do the plaques say?
For the three that because there are two of these hemispheres, right? I clarified this before. The spider's on one side, the sword and the rock are on the other side. Which side are you going to first? Because then I'll do everything on one side at a time, and then I'll interrupt with other things. Trademark.
Wait, so the sword is on its own?
No, it's the sword and the rock are on the one side with a few other things that don't immediately catch obvious attention.
Okay. He'll go to
Because
that
they're
one
smaller.
first.
Yeah. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Okay. Yeah, as you come to this side, the sword is labeled as the old Orbitesh blade. There is no further labeling. It seems to primarily just be that each of these has been given a name or a description far more than it has been given historical information. There's no year, there's no dating, there's no detailing. It's just a single line of description. And the weathered rock is listed as a fraction of a maze.
Ooh.
Ah,
Ooh. We
There's-
heard about a maze, didn't we?
Yes, you did.
I'm
We're gonna
a
need
maze.
rope.
You did.
The maze.
Gonna
My
need to
God, you're
smash
right.
this glass.
There's
Give me that.
There's also a
there's a person.
smaller little plank that from afar wasn't very noticeable, that just has a black feather on it that is just listed as a single raven's feather,
Ooh.
which is an atypical listing at best.
I bet they
What's
don't have
special about
ravens.
this raven? Hmm.
There's also a similarly small other plank, which is a small glass vial inside of which is this like silverish mercury-esque liquid that is listed as, firstly it says warning at the top, but does not clarify what it is warning for, and then it says silver lotus ink.
Oh. That's those little MFs in the forest.
Yep.
Is that everything in that?
That is everything you can glance
hemisphere.
from here. At this point, you can hear more creaking of wood, and it feels cold in the room. There's a faint breath of freezing air that shimmers around.
Kind of weird. What's the spider labeled as?
The spider's on the other side, so you're gonna need to cross over.
Okay, he'll do that.
But in the meantime, sorry, I'm jumping from things to things, but
That's okay.
yeah, I'm trying my best because there's a lot here, so I need to keep my own thoughts organized. It's at this point, Meridian, I feel you'd run into the first book TM that is labeled from before 1459. You can tell it's clearly severely damaged. The front cover of it is missing. Half of the pages have entirely worn down to the point that they're merely, they're tattered around the edges and severely damaged, but also they're grey with dust, and because of it, the ink of the original pages is entirely invisible. On the later pages, it gets a little better, but it's heavily faded and takes active effort to try and discern the words and writings on the page. It's faint contrast, and it's almost a puzzle of you know how you have those colorblind puzzles? It sort of feels almost like you're struggling to discern between the shades of grey on the page where once the ink had been. But at the front of its side cover, you can see that there are only 2 numbers of its dating that remain, but it's 1-3, which is from before your time.
Does the book have a title?
Not discernible anymore. It used to, that much is clear, but given that half of the book is basically torn off on the front end, not really. It's basically only the back half of the book, if you will.
Does it have any kind of writing within it that I can make out that I recognise from a book that I might have seen in the many halls of Candlekeep?
Roll me an investigation check, please.
Mm-hmm. No, why am I rolling so bad on investigation? I have a +5, but I got a 9. Tragic.
You rolled a what did you roll? Sorry?
I rolled a 4, and so I got a total of 9.
Oh. That's not very ideal, no. You read through it a little. It's not a book you're familiar with. It seems to be a children's tale that you've never heard of before. That was written down. You can tell one of the pages once had an ornate drawing on it from the way that the ink splots were trying to be visible. It's clear that they weren't once letters. It once was some form of ornate artwork. This is but it's no longer really clearly discernible.
With care, Meridian will put the book down back where it once was, and then just kind of hum to himself slightly, and then continue looking for anything else that piques his interest.
Joe, may I kindly request you to roll a D100 for me, please?
What? Okay, alright. A D100 it shall be.
Oh boy.
Should I roll this in secrets? Or...
It's your choice.
Okay, I don't actually know how to roll this in secrets, so...
/GM roll 1D100.
I forgot /GM roll works, because I've so rarely used, that. That is a number and a half.
It's sadly not the inverse of this number.
I was about to say, it's not very Ekin, is it? It's not very Ekin. Or it is rather Ekin, really, but...
I have
So
no
it's
idea what you're
96.
talking about.
So it's 96, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's 96.
It's a D100 roll. It's not like you have any clue what this means.
Mm-hmm.
There is... It's very hard to notice because it's on the bottom shelf and it's a really thin little booklet. So Meridian had glanced over it, but on this very thin little booklet, which is surprisingly intact, it says only a single word in this, like, what seems to once have been the silver thread, though since its little shine has dazed off and now it's merely a sort of a lighter grey, almost as if it's slightly white on the otherwise darker grey cover. It simply says the word dreaming with a label, a year of 922.
922 DR? Or does it not
It
have
does not clarify if it's still reckoning. The book's side is so thin that even if it wanted to, it would not fit.
It's okay. Amber is going to take the book off the shelf.
Yeah.
And she's going to walk on over to... then she's going to look around for this person who's in the library who might be able to allow her to check it out. Assuming libraries... She's hoping that libraries this many years into the future work the same way as the libraries did back in Afkatla. Not that Amber ever really went to the libraries in Afkatla, but she had friends who did.
Interesting.
Amber's not the bookiest of bookers.
Okay. As you're going to be looking towards this person, you can clearly tell that this person has at this stage moved to the other hemispherical glass dome. They are what seem to be a crooked humanoid. They're leaning on a heavy, what seems to be metallic cane. There's a long white pointed beard coming down from their chin, and their head is mostly bald and wrinkled with the many, many years of age. They faintly glare almost with an aged and weathered stare into the hemispherical glass, almost as if staring into some other reality, almost. Seemingly affixed on something not there, or perhaps their eyes don't quite reflect where they are staring. They're sort of looking in between the large spider figurine and the side of the dome, almost as if they're just staring at the back of the wood. They are wearing long, flowing, and seemingly like white, blackish robes. They're somewhat formal, mostly nicely maintained, though the edges have started going grey a little, presumably from exposure to dust over the many years. They've still seemingly not noticed any of you.
Hello? Amber's going to give a little wave and tap the ground with her staff slightly.
There is a moment of dreadful silence that hangs in the air. Then the older individual begins turning their head around. Their body mostly trying to maintain in the same position, leaning their weight onto the cane as they turn their head around. There you are. I'd been expecting you to arrive.
Miskits is you?
Nice to meet you. He reaches out an old and weathered hand, the nails of which have seemingly turned black with rot. The skin is very wrinkled and slightly shudders almost, as he can't quite hold his hand still. There are faint hairs that have grown on slight, almost like bubbles or tumors in his hand as he reaches it out towards you. Miskets orbite.
It's a pleasure. Tenacity will shake his hand. That's kind of weird, this guy's shaking hands. That's not how they do it here.
You are fully correct on that. There is something weird about that. That is very wrong. He pulls his hand back. He glances over his shoulder, then back towards you. What can I help you with?
Wanted to know if I could check this book out, and I think some of us had some questions too. If that's alright?
His eyes move down to the book, but the rest of his body remains unmoving. He looks over it for a moment, a quick glance, and faintly nods, then looks you back in the eyes. Take it.
Don't I have to check it out so you know that it's meant to be gone?
I won't forget your face.
Okay, that...
Wait. That sword over there, is it yours?
I understand the mistake, but it is not mine. I wasn't a warrior anywhere through my years.
Arborea?
Warrior.
Ah,
One to wield a sword.
Amber looks for a moment and then decides not to say anything in regard to that, tapping her quarterstaff idly on the ground as she takes the book and then goes, well, if you're sure, thank you.
You said your name is Orbitesh, right? Any relation to the Priest King?
Arthur!
It's a name I've adopted honorarily. It's not the one I was born with. The family offered me this title after, last name almost, after I provided my services to them in archiving information.
They say you've got a copy of the original.
They say so correctly, though I wouldn't call it a copy of the original, because then it would not be the original.
You never needed transcriptions of the Aerem?
What did you say? Sorry.
Have you never needed to make a copy of it. Like, write everything down again so it doesn't...
Many copies
Things tend
and
to decay.
reprints have been made, yes.
And the original survives?
Through my careful and meticulous caring for it, it has mostly survived this long.
I mean it... Well... correct me if I'm wrong out of character, please. But Arta said it was over 3,000 years old. You might be old, but I don't think you're that old.
Looks can be deceiving, but now I'm not 3,000 years old.
Well, of course, it might not be the original. It's just the oldest that you all know about, right? That's what Arthur said. It was carried here a while ago, and
You're not wrong. And now, I presume you desire to read it.
We want to know. I think the book understands what's apparently meant to be our divinely ordained place in this new world more than we do.
yes. And to, well, work out more about this world, I'd also be interested if you could point out a selection of books about the history of Rien. That's what you call it, right? This place? Rien?
Alright. I'll do whatever I can offer you. He begins walking away from the hemispherical glass dome with a slow and methodical step, careful to lean every ounce of weight onto the walking staff where possible. It's clear the wood creaks primarily off of the weight of the walking stick, not their feet, as he begins walking down further along the long hall that you're in, ignoring seemingly all of the books that you pass as though they're meaningless or unimportant. He eventually reaches the 3 faint flickering candles at the far end of the room. I presume each of you follow?
Yep.
Yes.
He blows out one of the candles, and you can feel it goes a little darker, and there's a chill breath of air in the room, almost as if it's freezing outside. There's a faint shiver that rolls down Meridian's neck. Then he begins descending the spiral staircase right next to him, beginning a long turn down into this dark, seemingly unlit area. There's no torches, no lights, no open flames. The only thing for Amber, for as far as... because everyone else is dark vision, correct?
Yeah, Amber is blind.
For Amber, the only thing that you basically can perceive is the creaking of wood ahead of you down the spiral staircase, wherever the heavy leaning down on the walking stick occurs. It's creaking of wood that seemingly guides you down into this darkness. For the others, you can tell that the wooden structure of the walls rapidly turns to this stone-like structure, this seemingly little worn-down stone. A metallic pipe barricades part of the descent down, though the stairwell is sort of formed around it, not as if it's almost not as if it's been meticulously planned, but if it just coincidentally happened to swirl around this metallic pipe. You can tell there's another shortly after, you eventually reach down into this stone hall. There are what seem to almost be jail cells on both sides of the hallway. It's very cold down here, almost freezing. The temperature is unexpectedly sharp. There's still no light anywhere, as if purposeful. The darkness is oppressive and lingers around the corners. There is a singular cobweb in a slightly domed ceiling overhead. A small little spider has made a home there. Though, other than that, it seems quite well cleaned and maintained. It seems this little spidery web is just barely out of reach of whatever cleaning supplies are used here. The hallway takes a turn, and then another. It seems almost a little maze-like set of passages. Though, after a few moments, it is quietly disrupted as you hear a creaking of a metallic mechanism. Miskets has lowered down this lever, which is raising up an iron portcullis into a chamber off to the side. A singular stone table, clearly primitive, hewn out of stone by hand, slightly uneven and unfinished, stands in the middle of the room with a set of loose pieces of parchment. They are not bound together, they are loose, stacked in neatly maintained separate stacks. Each individual one has been slightly coated in a slight sheen of some variety, though it's hard to tell at a first glance what is going on. There is a soft smell of nectar lingering in the air in this chamber, a sweet and honey-like flavor in the otherwise dusty and old and worn surroundings. The pages are neatly kept in stacks of what seem to be 100 at a time, and there are a lot of stacks. At a first glance, at least 30, maybe 50 of them. Nisket's gestures inside. Here's the first bit.
What do you mean by the first bit? How much is there?
Quite a few. Some 70,000 pages. If you thought I was going to store all of those in a single chamber, that would be
How many
foolish.
chambers are there?
Quite a few. I did not do this math myself. But
Sorry, I'm making you do more math,
no,
aren't I? I'm really
that's
sorry.
fine. There are like 57 of them. That math probably works out. I didn't do the exact numbers. That's fine.
How many did you say?
57.
57? I thought I was
A lot of
mishearing
pages.
you.
I mean, there are a fuck ton of pages to this book. And
No, it's fine,
when
yeah,
you're trying
yeah.
to store these pages very carefully, you don't want to store them in mass bulk stacked on top of each other, pressed down. You want to give them their space.
It's a lot of real estate.
And also, this is very much also like measure of security, because if one of the rooms crashes and collapses, you don't lose the entire original copy. You just lose whatever is in that room, which is 1/57th of the full work.
Oh my god. Okay. Well,
Do be careful not to touch the pages with your bare hands.
why not?
Because the ink that is on them is poisonous to the touch.
Why did people write with poisonous ink?
It was a measure to best maintain the parchment over these many years.
I suppose poisoning anyone who touches it would maintain the parchment, but that does not seem like a good idea.
Is this the beginning?
Quiet your voice a little.
Amber shuts up.
This is mostly the beginning. This starts at the third verse. You'd been given the first in its original copy recently. It had been requested by the priest king to be delivered to you. I made sure all poisons were removed off of it before it was transferred in your direction.
I can't remember who's holding that. I think it...
You are.
Huh?
You are.
I believe it was tenacity, yes.
I believe it's tenacity.
That doesn't surprise me.
The Aerem, the copy we received, it wasn't in a language most of us knew. Do you know what it was written in?
I have no name for the language. I believe it to be one so old it was lost to time. I can read it from my many years of practice and from what my father taught me when I was but a young boy.
Did your father speak it? Or did he learn the same way that you did?
He learned the same way I did, passed down through the generations as part of the art to maintaining this hall.
Does that mean that all of the copies that have been done are just translations of the original text? And how can you guarantee that your versions are correct? What if
Most other copies are translations, yes. There are a few that circulate that try to keep to its original language.
Well, sure, but how can you be confident in the fact that the language that you were taught, through oral tradition, down generations is correct, and there aren't any mistranslations in the document?
You can never be sure that every word is correct to its finest, though given the consistency and the gist and nature of translation over the many thousands of years, I'd reckon our understanding of the language has at least mostly stayed the same. You'd expect otherwise to see big variations and new translations to old, but we seem to be mostly on the right path.
But this isn't the original, is it? It's just a copy.
This is the original. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It's the oldest one that they know about.
Yeah. But Atta wasn't sure it was the original.
This is the original insofar as any of them can be called the original.
Right.
It's the one all the other copies here have been copied from, anyway.
Does that mean, when we were given the first section, right, does that mean that the section we were given was also written with poisonous ink? Because a couple of us touched that one.
I said before, it was given to you, I removed all of the ink that was poisonous.
Good, sorry, just checking. And does that mean, was the ink, poisonous ink added, was that part of the original design?
It was not part of the original, no. It is the method that best maintains the parchment.
Have I, in my time of an archivist and reader, have I heard of...
No, you've not heard of this in this way before. But also, it's making use of things you've never seen before in your world, being those nectar-smelling white flowers you saw in the forest with their metallic sheen drips.
They're using those flowers.
Yep.
Yes, I think we can.
That was at least heavily implied.
It
yes.
was implied, and I possibly made the connection, but I didn't know. Does it have a similar smell to them in any way? Or
I mean, given that the first thing I described in this room in terms of smell was the soft and sweet nectarish smell, yes, very much so.
I am very silly. Yes, of course.
That's perfectly fine.
Oh, Miskits.
Yes.
Who's the original author of the Aerem?
That's a question to which I'm not old enough to know the answer.
I'm gonna insight to see if he's deliberately withholding information.
Interesting.
Because if all these people just don't know this stuff, that's a 5.
This guy is hard to read. He has a pale whitish face. He has this old stare in his like slightly shut eyes. It's dark in here. It's impossible to tell.
Well, why didn't the information get passed down to you?
I guess a good question for that is also, why didn't it get passed down to the person before and before? Who knows?
Some things get lost over the many years. Everyone remembers that one trinket of their childhood they left strewn about carelessly, that they weren't as meticulous with as the rest of their lives, and it will never be found again. Perhaps an old toy or a childhood key that has gone missing.
It just seems irresponsible.
In some regard, we're all feeble little mortals with irresponsible actions.
Speak for yourself, we're the Aeremna.
Are you so different?
Not at all.
People seem to think
But
that we are.
we'll keep wary of tales told, and well, this one seems to have a lot of sway for something that you don't have the original and you don't have the author.
We have... Alright.
I would still like to read it though.
Feel free to.
Amber is looking vaguely in Tenacity's direction, like, you are insulting these people's religion and then just going off to read it.
And he's looking back like, well, of course.
Yeah, it makes sense. And
Miskit steps out of the room slightly, looks around for a moment, hesitantly, and waits.
Senna's going to step outside of the little room because just in case the portcullis goes down, somebody needs to be on the other side of the door.
Senna is relentlessly paranoid at all times.
No, it's a valid worry. I'm gonna go stand by the spiderweb cobweb.
Amber is just going to stand near Tenacity. Just there at the moment. Can she even see the top of the table to read the book?
Amber can't see anything, there's no light here.
Oh yeah, the silver point.
Everything's in darkness.
I meant to comment on this earlier, but didn't get the chance. I'm asked, can someone make some light, please?
Please be
There's
aware
probably a
that
reason why.
no fire should be kept here, and all light should be kept bright. Should be kept dim and away from the pages, in order to prevent wear and tear of the material.
Oh, that's fab. Amber is then going to look around. Not so look around is a bad turn of phrase. It's going to try and feel around for someone's hand to grab and hold on to who can see. Probably Icarus if Icarus is just there, or maybe Tenacity's reading. She might go over to Senna, but I don't know if she knows where Senna is, and Senna left. And it's definitely not Meridian, so I'm not really sure. It's going to be someone, though.
Icarus is probably the closest to her at the moment, because he's just kind of like milling about, stood there.
Yeah, okay. Amber will grab Icarus's hand. Just so she has not completely alone in the dark.
Tenacity's going to talk to Meridian. He's gonna say, what's your read on all of this?
I read. Well, I haven't really read much yet, but I mean, I am as unsure and unconfident about this as I was when I first came to the city. So, my main issue with all of this right now is trying to build a timeline of the events that happened here. I can't make it make sense. Like, what happened to this place for it to end up like this, and why has so much changed? You know, the names of places being completely unfamiliar. You know, even the name of the very planet itself being different, and yet they still speak the same language that you and I know. So, there's something.
It really doesn't line up.
Exactly.
I've seen some strange things and heard about Stranger, but it does start to feel like a bad dream.
There are 3 strings. One is spun when you are younger, in the early days of your life. It sets your childhood, your earliest memory, and your perception of life. The second is spun when you reach the middle of your life, but you won't know it. It defines your perception of death, your fears and your worries of the many years that you spend traveling in unforeign circumstances, in strange lands and amid dusts you've never lived before. The third string is spun when you lose someone close to you, and when your heart is racked with grief.
Is that a quote from something?
It's a later part of the Aerem.
What verse? Or just later?
I'm not that good at numbers, unfortunately.
Biscuits, do you mind if we see the end of the book first?
Do you want to?
I want to.
Do you want to read the end of Fate before you've read its beginning?
We've read
Well,
the
if it's
first
gonna
part.
happen anyway.
Interesting.
I mean, I don't think the ending's always so set in stone. But I'll take a look.
I'll take you to the epilogue. I presume that's what you mean. Because what constitutes the ending of any story or work is far more complicated than it might seem at first.
Of course. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Misket's gestures everyone to step back out of the little room with the portcullis.
Meridian is quite distracted from the talk about the strings and all of that. He's kind of thinking about that, but doesn't want to really show it on his face.
Alright. Misket lowers the lever, and with it, the portcullis slides back down into its original position, creaking slightly as it digs itself into the stonework beneath. Then Misket begins walking down the long halls again. Have you been in the Silverymoon before?
No.
He says,
What's that?
The sewer network, I guess you could call it, underneath the city. This set of chambers was originally connected to them on the northern side, though since that connection has been barricaded off and is no longer accessible. Most of the Silverymoon is still open.
Why was it barricaded, and does the Silverymoon go around the district barrier gates? That seems counterintuitive.
The Silverymoon connects all individual districts, with the exception of the Royal Sanctuary district. Though very few dare travel down there, and the Wanderers hardly make an appearance. It's a safe haven in some regards.
Eyes widen a little at this. Does this... I mean, it's accurate, but... Probably anyway, but... She's just looking at it like,
I mean, there's not much looking at it, it's more listening to it.
Okay, I'm blind and listening to a man talk about the sewers. I don't know. But...
You've never been in a sewer before, Amber?
This isn't part of the sewer network itself, though if you'd paid any attention, you'd have seen a few metal tubes running along the walls every now and again. Those are the Silverymoon. This is merely a chamber that once was connected to them.
I've been in the sewers before, once or twice. Afkatla has a few. And now I've given you the in-character information you got out of character earlier because I slept, so I was... Whoopsie daisy. I didn't know. Afkatla had a few sewers.
Do I know where that is?
Can you roll me a general intelligence? A history check, actually. Not general intelligence, just a history check, please.
Yes, history. Oh no, general intelligence, sorry.
No, history. History.
Yeah, history.
History.
Okay.
That was correct.
Good. Oh my god, I'm rolling so badly today. That is a natural one.
Oh, that's an F. Also, Simon, as an unrelated question, is it the case that Silverymoon only had sewers in one of the districts?
I don't remember this off the top of my head.
Doesn't matter. Irrelevant. Kit rolled a natural one.
Yeah. Not a place you've ever heard of, Meridian. So it probably isn't along the Sword Coast.
Okay. kind of sad that all of the rolls I've done so far, I've had a +5 in, and I haven't got above a 10 yet.
Yeah,
Tragic.
it's honestly painful. It's painful to watch as well. I feel for you. Does anyone else want to say anything, or is the rest of the walk in silence as you traverse these cobblestone passages?
Holding onto Icarus's hand, probably tripping and asking him to occasionally point out where some particularly, bulbous cobbles might be, so she can avoid them.
Can I get a perception check from... And well, I don't think Amber rolling for it makes any sense. Can I get a perception check from everyone else, please? With disadvantage.
I'm not there.
You're not...
Anna's staying behind.
You stayed above?
I stayed next to the portcullis because I didn't.
I mean,
I
you're
didn't
now
want anybody.
being... I mean, no, you've moved back out of the room with the portcullis.
Oh.
And you're walking along to a different room now because you wanted to find the end of the story rather than the beginning
I mean,
of it.
as long as I'm not stuck between a portcullis and a hard place.
You're not stuck between a portcullis and a hard place.
Noia.
With disadvantage, please.
Disadvantage.
Yes.
It's a perfectly valid worry.
It is a perfectly valid worry.
Oh, there's a roll. Okay, well, that's what it was. So I got natural 20, disadvantage an 18.
That's
impressive.
It's only Meridian that notices this. Interesting. Meridian, can I also just get a flat sanity roll from you, please?
Oh, come on. This is the roll that I do well in and I'm getting punished for it. What a... Oh, okay. Flat sanity.
Don't worry about it. You're not getting punished. This isn't punishment. This
It
is
feels
just...
like punishment because I have a -1 to sanity. Okay, hang on, I need to turn off.
Yeah, but you don't know what the sanity roll is for. For sanity rolls, sometimes rolling low is good.
Not too bad, I got 14. Which
See?
is good for me.
All is well. I'm not sure what you're on about. It's like you've just turned around a corner and it's very hard to notice, but embedded sort of in between two loose pieces of cobblestone, there is a faint little plant growing almost. There's this little moss at its base and it grows up and the stem of it sort of curls around in almost a hook shape, and a little flower dangles from the end of that hook, almost like a little bell. Sorry, I didn't realize Icarus hadn't rolled yet. Yeah, Icarus, you also notice this. There's this faint flower dangling at the end of the bell. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not describing any colors because you can't see colors because it's dark.
Dark vision moment. Otherwise, I would have asked such a question. Also, Amber can't see anything. Anyway,
yeah. I was asked
blind.
the question of color in a message in the.
The answer is grey.
How dim can you make your goo?
Why are you asking this?
At some point in the tunnel, I don't know when. But
alright.
Does Nasty have any idea if he could get the goop to be on the dimmest of settings?
There aren't particularly intensity settings to the goop.
Yeah. The goop does what the goop does.
The goop does what the goop does.
Gooping.
The goop light is an otherworldly thing that even Tenacity does not fully comprehend.
Sometimes it changes color without your knowledge.
Sometimes it changes color and then Beck freaks out.
Yeah.
That wasn't in the instruction manual.
The instruction manual keeps disappearing if anybody else looks at it.
Oh my god.
Yeah, okay.
Tennessee says he can't. He's not putting on.
Okay.
Yeah, all I was going to say is, although I can't see colour,
yeah,
do I recognise at all what this flower is. Have I seen it before on my mini travels?
Ooh, this is a fun question. Roll me a history check.
History, not nature.
No, history. Definitely
That's fine.
history.
That's what I was
It's the same-
thinking.
it's
I
the
was
same-
wondering why this would be the case, and I think I know.
Would Icarus
It's the same.
No, Icarus is not allowed to
or
roll this.
recognise it?
No.
Please
No.
be a good. Why am I rolling so bad on my intelligence check today? Okay, that's a total of 13.
It looks-
Again, I have a +5.
It looks vaguely familiar. Definitely. It looks vaguely familiar, but there's just this like nagging feeling of you've seen this before, but you can't place it.
So it doesn't look like one of the silver lotuses, does it?
No. It's very different as well. It's not an open flower. It doesn't have 5 petals. It's this like hook-shaped stem, and then there's this flower hanging downwards, almost like a bell at a clock tower, in a similar shape. So no, it does not look like the lotuses.
In which case, I'll just speak up towards his kits and be like, I would thought you wouldn't want much plant life in here to interfere with all the, might cause decay to quicken. I don't know much of that stuff, but still, keep an eye on that.
Miskia sort of stops in their walk, turns around, and moves over towards the little plant. Sort of groans as he sort of places his walking stick on the ground, leans down towards it, rips it out of the ground, and just crumbles it up in his hand. It slowly turns to dust, which then falls towards the cobblestone. He groans as he picks his walking stick back up, pushes himself upright, and then, as if nothing has happened, continues walking along the hallway.
Reading will take a moment to pause, step up to where the root once was, mutter something in Goblin towards it, taps the wall with the cane, and then carries on.
It's only a short little walk from that point onwards to a new portcullis, which is slowly raised by another lever. And on that note, we're gonna take a break!
Take a break.
Wow.
Well, we get back to you with the delightful and mysterious information of what is the end of the Aerem after that break. So make sure not to leave, because it's the good and the important trademark. It's a big deal.
I'm excited. Skipping right to the last page.
Yeah, as we all know, the best way to read books is to read the last page first.
That's, I mean,
It is if it's a prophecy
pretty
about
much
you.
expecting us to read the last page and see the
there was-
Aeremna die. The end.
Yeah. No, this reminds me of a post I saw online, which was like, I read the last page of, when Harry Potter 7 came out, I decided to flip over to the last page, and I got just a glance of Harry kisses Albus, and I went, holy fuck, plot twist. Which, yeah, anyway, on that note, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be back in a little under 30 minutes, it seems. And bye!
Bye.
And we have returned from after our break and after every little thing.
Exciting stuff.
Very exciting stuff. Exciting indeed. I'm just realizing the map is a little off, but that's fine. There we go. Sorry, I wanted to quickly fix that on the stream because it was ugly to me. Yeah, we're back. We're gonna quickly do our usual credits and traditional stuff before we get right back into the tension. TM. But we'll get into that in a moment. First, we'll quickly do some art credits and some music credits.
Credits. I'll be taking these for today. So let's just go and start with, well, the wonderful character arts, which have all been created, at least for all the PCs, by Snezhka, or at Snezhka on Twitter, _Snezhka on Twitter, who created the character arts and the backgrounds for each of the PC arts. We've also got a variety of free-to-use artworks in the Griffin Saddlebag, which are featured on streams. Some artworks from the Dungeon Strugglers, which have been used with explicit permission. 2 specific artworks from Peter Lynn, which we've been given explicit permission to use. A variety of battle maps from 2 Minutes Tabletop. And from our very own Becky at Harpser, who created the stream overlay, variety of NPC artwork, our logo, and Kit, who is also one of our own, disappointingly, who created the map, which we have before us now.
Don't worry, Kit, I still love you.
Fine. I mean,
that is the art credits.
Alright.
yes, and there's also plenty of other credits because, you know, there's 2 comments to all media. As we know, the only thing that matters are images and sound. So with sound, we have plenty of music credits to mention. So various composers have given us permission to use their soundtrack. So Merlin CD Broadway has given us permission to use their Curse of Strahd originals. Savoie for all of their music. So that includes, but not limited to, Descent into Avernus, Curse of Strahd, Annihilation, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, Waterdeep Dungeon the Mad Mage, and Rime and the Frostmaiden soundtracks. Derek and Brandon Feitster have given us access to a broad variety of their fantasy music. Lena Rain, specifically for the Colourful Tale song from the Chicory soundtrack, as well as the entire Celeste soundtrack, including the Farewell soundtrack, Celeste DLC. Graham Plowman has given us access to the Lovecraft orchestral music and originals that they've done, and Just a Friendly Crusader on YouTube has given us access to some of their music as well. Various companies have given us permission, so Stuart Chatwood from Red Hook Studios has given us permission to use the original soundtrack of the Darkest Dungeon games and their DLCs, including specifically the Colour of Madness DLC. We've got access to the original soundtrack of the video game series, The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing, which is developed by Neocore Games.
This track you're hearing right now is actually from The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing 2.
Well, there you go. Piotr Musiał has given us access to the original soundtrack of Frostpunk in collaboration with 11-Bit Studios. Eric Barone has given us access to the original soundtrack of Stardew Valley, and Gareth Coker, the composer of the soundtrack of Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, has given us access to that soundtrack in collaboration with Moon Studios. There's various other songs we have access to through Creative Commons attribution licenses, like Kevin MacLeod's music, Maiden's Savoie album, and music from Scott Buckley. And if you want a list that is still in process of being developed, there's a whole list of the songs that will likely come up at some point during the campaign that you can find on the music credits document in the cards on Twitch, and it's got a whole list of songs that will likely come up at some point during the game.
Yeah, it's very incomplete because I am a busy person and I have a lot of music. But I'll try my best. I'll try my best to update it soon. All right. Yeah. In terms of announcements, apart from the announcements I did at the start of this section, I don't believe we have any announcements to make. Do feel free to correct me wrong, but I think we're, yeah? Alright, well, I'm gonna.
I'm under the impression that you are correct, so I didn't correct you.
Good. Good. With that, let's move back to where we left off, which is in this part of / chamber off of / basement that is near the Sevlin Mire, whatever that may be. It's a really good name. Can I get some credits for the name? I was proud of that.
It's good.
Okay, thank you. That means a lot to me. Yeah, in these underground tunnels, being guided by this old, pale, long, windy robed individual with a pale white beard that has been guiding you through. You've reached the end of this hallway. It ends in this just plain stone wall. And Arita sort of almost walks over towards the edge of that wall, then turns and cranks down a lever in front of you, and a portcullis slowly creaks as it raises itself up into a similar room like the one you'd been before, with similar stacks of parchment. You can tell this one has fewer pieces of parchment in it altogether. It seems more limited in that regard. Misket's gestures to three pieces, no, not three, a singular piece of paper that lies on the edge of this roughly hung stone table. It slightly has a silver sheen to it still, and there's a faint smell of nectar in the room. This honey-like, soft, sweet smell. It lies almost separate of the rest, and seems important in some regards. What would you like to do?
Go and look at the bit that seems important.
It's still written in a script that only Tenacity can read. But I presume Tenacity's gonna start reading.
Yeah.
Alright, let me just start dumping.
Here it is.
I'm perfectly happy to read it out loud for you so that you don't have to.
Yes, yes, please.
Because this one's gonna be quite long.
Tenacity would read it out, but
yeah.
I don't feel like
long.
doing
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Quite long.
More keeps coming.
Okay.
I'm not done yet. There's another piece.
Oh god. Okay.
Jeez.
This is gonna be the
fair,
fourth
it's a whole epilogue. So
Yeah.
It's true. It's the entire Aerem 707. So if there's a total of 707 books scattered across 57 rooms.
These are not
verses,
books.
verses.
These are verses. Yeah.
That means there's about 12.4 verses per room. How long is each verse? Quick maths. I say Google.
That's still quick maths. Yeah. All right.
By the way, Icarus would have also cast Comprehend Languages to read this himself.
If I'm not mistaken, to read things with Comprehend Languages, you need to touch whatever they are written on.
Did I mishear earlier and say that the ink has been... Oh, was the ink just removed from that one piece of paper?
Just from the one piece of paper that you've been given.
Oh,
the
okay,
first verse.
Okay,
These still have ink.
In that case, that's fine. And he
will
begrudgingly just trust Tenacity.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, it is true, right?
What you mean is
yeah, you must be touching the surface on which the words are written. So yeah. Unfortunately,
Tenacity's actually just making it up as he goes along.
Amber trusts Tenacity
He's
wholeheartedly.
just saying a bunch of rubbish.
Yeah. Icarus is just anal about that kind of thing.
Also,
special.
Simon, I'm gonna ask you this, mostly out of concern for your sanity, but if I said Aerem 348, would you have verses for that?
That's a very good question that I'm not gonna answer.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Whether I wrote 70,000 pages or not, I'll leave vaguely ambiguous. I will. I genuinely will. I'm not answering that question. Alright. I'm gonna read it all, this entire verse, because you guys have been able to read it just now, but the viewers at home can't. Aerem 707. A last elate moon brings shimmers of the dark depths below to the surface, brewing unrest in souls amid the cold dusts. A time of change comes dreadfully slowly, and the worn-down centuries are cold and harsh to the dusted skin. Bloodstains line the dreadful surface dwellers who have endured the wanderer's gaze, and the Aeremna have tented the string like a violist their instrument, straining against their touch, yearning for freedom yet tied down to reality evermore. A cold shard of stone, pressed into the corner of the room, speaks in a rocky tone words of heedful warning, stories of dread and death, yet this shan't be one of them. Under cracked moon's sky, with tears on bloodshed soil, secrets of old boil to the surface, secrets of a civilization. Among them, the old studies of the arcane lie discarded as though mere playthings to the old ones, as though fickle and frail shards of omnipotent arcane mastery exist. It is nothing to them, but to us a world lies buried. Can one but imagine the potency of the old ones, if the fundamental nature of the arcane laid bare to them is not worthy of shelving in their theoretical bookshelves of tomes and old homes? It surfaces in the hands of the Aerem, a world unheard that comes to clean the dusts, a warped reality set straight by the arcane Aeremna. The dusts, fragments of a now long-distant past, though to be in the future, come to rest on the ground, then sink beneath it. The tug of the arcane, like a radiance otherworldly, cleanses. The wither of the soul and aged resists at first, lest their strings become entangled. Their enigmatic reality, however, align with secrets as old as time. Whispers among the streets soon follow. What the Aeremna bring, carrying wisdom of old times, they bring in twofold, as they unearth not only their own, but civilizations, and with these, like two swords, a mercenary trained finely in dual-bladed combat. Even the veil of reality is but a silk piece of fabric, at the whim of nothing, tied down no longer by strings or fabric, or the threads of even fate herself. It is these swords that slice the world in half, the way the moon has been, and it is plainer destruction unrivaled. The quiet dust settled down amid the wreckage. Miraculously, none have come to fall. Almost as though divinely blessed immortally, the world is unaffected, unchanged, yet all that burdened it, all that wore it down, the dusts that so did change it, and the facelessness and wonders those brought, are set right and just again. A plainer sundering, nevertheless. A world without a home has found its place, sundered to a peaceful reality, and with it comes the blessing of time. A young child asks their mother, "But what then?" An older child knows better than to ask. There is no end to questions. There never can be. To any question, the inquisitive why lingers like a radiant, searing hot red blade in the minds of the curious one. That blade is dull, it is unwieldy, it is weathered and old. Its wielder, foolish, forgot that reality bends itself around other things but reason, for sometimes those reasons go beyond the mists, as do they now. An adult has reasoned further, and knows the reality of it all, and the graveness that reality has.
That's it. That's where it stops.
That's where it stops.
Well, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of development.
If this is how convoluted and messy. You know, one verse is. I dread to be the one that's read it all.
Yeah, not really a story you'd tell around the fire, is it?
No. Getting any meaning out of this is like drawing water from a stone. It's hard to find anything that makes sense, even things I can relate to at this point.
Well, it is the end of the book. I just wanted to see if thought everything would turn out fine.
It turns out that reading the last page when you don't understand the rest of the book makes it incomprehensible, as though there is some grand story to it all you fail to see.
Well, yeah, of course. I knew that. But I just wanted to see if everything happened just how people wanted it to. And it looks like it does. Which is just interesting.
See, I gather that this was talking about stuff that's already happened, perhaps. But maybe it is referring to something else. I'm not sure.
Surely this is all some kind of, I don't know, long, convoluted form of entertainment. And surely this can't be.
The end of it seems to say it's definitely something that hasn't happened yet, right?
Maybe. What do you mean by entertainment, Icarus?
Oh, like an epic poem.
That's precisely what I mean. I mean, we can't look at this and presume that it is, actually has a grain of truth in it. Well, it may have a grain of truth in it, but surely we're not going to be a part of something like this. I mean, the more I hear
still
about
just a story.
Exactly, it's all just some incredibly long-winded story.
You think they make it a little bit snappier, easier to remember?
Yeah, I'd love to have a word with the guy that wrote this.
Yeah.
Although
they could have definitely done with a few more redrafts, some editing, perhaps.
I hate to say it, but it is convenient that what the Aerem says at the beginning does seem to have happened. And I suppose you can kind of align any story with reality and say it's true. That's the nature of rumour.
Cool. And when writing is this convoluted and...
It is convoluted, but also there are 5 faces that came into this realm through the mist. There are dusts that seem to be going through this. There's more than one grain of truth to this.
Well, sure, but in thousands of years, eventually it's going to get one or two things right?
One or two things is a severe understatement of the number of things that this is getting right.
Or maybe it's some kind of time traveller who went back.
Maybe there's undoubtedly a reason, either that or magical foresight or who knows. But the fact is, there does seem to be a level of accuracy here.
Well, do we want to follow it? Do we want to read it and do what it says? Or should we just wing it?
Well, here's the thing.
I don't think we have enough time to read everything.
No, here's the thing. I know a small thing about, there's plenty of people who can say they know the future. And they'll tell you your story or your future or fortune telling, whatever. There's plenty of people out there, and I've ran into a couple in my time. And a lot of the time, the futures they give you are so convoluted and vague that eventually you'll pick out one thing and assume it to be true. And I've had some time thinking about this, and I worry that maybe that's what this entire thing is. Sure, there's some things that, yes, don't get me wrong. There's certainly some things that seem way too specific to be anything else but, very good luck or reason. But the point is, if there's so much convoluted story to this, why should we assume that it's all going to be correct and not assume
I don't think we should assume it's all going to be correct, but we should at least look at it with some level of a lot of it is correct. There's a good chance much of it, other parts are.
I think if we'd spent a lot of time looking through it, we'd probably find more that we can deem as incorrect than correct. But as Tenacity said earlier, you can always apply some sort of truth to a story because we look at it and we see ourselves, don't we?
I mean, why do you think people love gossip so much?
Curious about what these old ones are.
Me too, and they're planar sundering. That sounds pretty interesting.
Whatever this is, it's certainly above.
Amber looks like she's struggling to pronounce the name, and in the end she just says, Orbitash?
Sorry, what? Sorry, I out of character missed that line.
That's alright. Amber was struggling to pronounce the librarian's proper name, also because I struggled to pronounce the librarian's proper name.
Orbitash.
So just said Orbitash? Yeah. It's like, what are the old ones mentioned here?
They are rumored to be shards of other world in some regards. Entities, creations, pieces of reality itself that have embedded their way into fractions of this world. They are voiceless, yet speak louder than any word a man can muster. They are not immortal, for immortality does not do them justice.
Perhaps I've been looking at this all wrong. Ms. Kitts, I definitely need as many of those books. I definitely need as many of those books on this world, the history of this world, as much as you can, because I've got some ideas in my head, and I don't know. I just need to see something so I can make sense of it all.
Have you ever met one of these old ones?
I wish I could say I had. I've never come an acquaintance with an old one. You could say I am an old spirit, but not an old one.
You know of anyone who has met an old one?
I believe that when I was a young boy, I spoke to someone who said they had. But over the many years, their name has failed to remain amid the wrinkly old brain that I still have.
Is he telling the truth?
You can roll an insight check.
It's loading. 7. I miss having insight.
Imagine ever having insight. Wait, Amber has insight.
For as far as you can tell, he's speaking the truth, though it's rather difficult to read, especially in the dark, especially with this mysterious old man that is clearly weird in some ways.
Okay. So one can meet them, is what you're saying?
I believe that is the case.
What did you mean? Sorry, I'm distracted. But what did you mean by fractions of reality? Well, that all converge onto this one world. Are there people? Are these things scattered from across further places, more distant?
I believe so, yes. There are fragments beyond these mists, from what the Aerem specifies.
Well, maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Now, obviously I need more information, but what if... And Meridian turns to look at the rest of the group. So, what if this place, this world, isn't, the future of Toriel, the place that we're from, and I nod towards the Miskids. What if this place is something else, but more like a neutral place outside of Toriel, somewhere else? A place where, since its inception, the moon has been destroyed and dust has fell from the sky, and it's just another place. And the people who live here are descendants from a collection of people from our world, but for some reason, whether they're sucked in by the mists or drawn into other means, got pulled into this place and started to just build a civilization, learn to survive, find relics from the past or other such things, and then, build a community using the same dates, the same language that they came from originally, but nothing else. They started building up a land in this place. That's why this place is so separate with, different flora and fauna, different other such things. And, they find relics, they find more of these old tomes that come from, they're not sure where, but they seem to be as old as time itself, because they also come from different places, different times, that all kind of fall into this mesh. This place, this world is closer to more of a mixing pot, an accidental, collapse of things from different places, different times, that are all scattered down. And maybe this prophecy is nothing more than an account from the future, and it somehow got drawn in. I don't know. But maybe this place isn't our future, it's just a place that doesn't fit into our flow of time.
Maybe.
These old ones are other such fragments from various places that have fallen in somehow to come here. Does that make any sense at all?
It does. It's persuasive, but what made it click?
Well, this idea of the old ones being fragments from other realities. And I started thinking that we came here by accident. We just stepped into the mist and just appeared here. Why shouldn't it be the case that that's how anyone got here? Why should we assume that, I don't know much about nature, but I do know one thing, the fact that people come from adapting to surroundings, and we see, all the other flora and fauna we've seen is unlike anything that we recognise, really. Unique animals, unique plants that we haven't really seen before. And yet we still see people, which we are familiar with. And there's occasional other animals that we might recognise, like a spider. Those are things that could have fallen through, but don't belong to this place. They're like an invasive species of sorts. That's why we recognise them, but we don't recognise anything else. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Not really. Not to me. Maybe I'm just not
Moving
getting
ahead.
it.
It's hard to explain, and it probably doesn't mean anything. It's probably wrong, but
You mean this place is like somewhere that's outside of our world, outside of many worlds, say, like a boundary place between them where sometimes the fog is weak and things just fall on through?
An accidental dumping ground.
yeah, it's like, the best way I can put it is, it's like a rock pool. When things get swept in by the tide and they get stuck in a place that has a different ecosystem to what they're familiar with, but they're stuck there. This place is kind of like a rock pool, but on a cosmic scale, whatever that means.
Amber keeps on. Amber looks at Meridian. She's not quite following this theory. Because, well, in part because she's not got the biggest inch in the world, but also she's just, it's a little confusing. She's just like, well, how is that any more true than the book in front of you?
Oh, I'm not saying it's more true. It's a theory. Yes, I don't want to discredit the book in its entirety. There's just yesterday, or just a few hours ago, I was hailing the accuracies of the books in some capacity. But all I'm saying is that this book is nothing more than, a pebble washed up in a rock pool from a future that explains the events of what happened in the rock pool. I don't know. This analogy is losing meaning, but
I think it's a good theory. We don't need to look for truth. There probably isn't one. But I do think we should look for one of these old ones. They probably have a better idea than, well...
I feel like looking for an old one is a bad idea. I think if there are forces beyond your comprehension, you shouldn't mess with them.
Maybe you're just close-minded.
What?
I think...
Hey, just because it's different doesn't mean it's bad.
No, but if it's incredibly powerful, dangerous, and you don't understand how you're... It means you should be careful.
Omnipotent. Wouldn't they have means to find out we're looking for them?
Maybe. That would
They
make
might
it a lot
already know.
easier if they did.
Make it a lot harder if they didn't want to be found.
That's also true.
About, there's just... Are there many people who live above the surface? Apart from people of Chandea? Kobolds don't really go out much of their mountain.
They don't leave Emily, the...
It is rare to see people survive out in the dusts. There are a few.
If you have a book, and it's been kept safe so long, why is it calling... Well, I assume it's calling you dreadful. And I don't mean that you are dreadful, it's an interesting way to call oneself. I mean, I'm sure it's nothing. I don't get this. I really don't. Is there more than one Wanderer? Are they mentioned often?
Wanderers are the names that they give to the creatures.
Those consumed by the dusts.
Yeah, and it's usually plural, the Wanderers, or you just refer to them as, the thing that's out there that's going to kill you. I don't know. I'm not good with books.
Dreadful
words.
can mean more than just a negative word. It could it can refer to the dread with which people are filled when their lives are like this.
That's true.
Or it could mean rather grand.
Yeah.
It's also true.
I just wish I'd paid more attention to those lessons that I was taught in Canopy. There's some people. I had a friend who was much more focused on the whole analysing text and, going over books, scouring them and stuff. But I don't know. That wasn't really what I found interesting.
Friends were usually more focused on beating people up.
I just ignored all my lessons.
I mean, analysing a text can get you so far, but it's only one text. We could always go and ask the people in the city what kind of stories get tossed around. It might be more useful.
I thought we were just complaining about the fact that this book is too much filled with gossip and rumour, and now you want to actually go and find old wives'
I'm not
tales.
complaining about that.
I don't know why people would complain about it at all.
I don't get it enough to complain.
We might find more truth in the interpretations and the applications of what people think of this than in the text itself.
I think we're all too focused on the idea of truth.
Well,
If we have, and I'm gonna say this as 3 goals, surely our 3 goals are 1, what's going on? 2, how do we leave? And 3, can we fix this? I think truth ties pretty importantly into number 1.
Okay,
Well-
Amber, if you say so.
in which case, the best place we can figure out at least 2 of those is to at least follow the book in some way. As we know, the book mentions at some points, we still need to know all of the details, but it mentions 3 main places, right? The one that we now know is Keep Rothin. The second one, which is this underground, ancient Drow civilization of sorts. And the third is this labyrinth, someplace. And those are in the order that it says in the book. So we have to make a decision at some point whether or not we're going to follow the book and figure out what these places are.
I guess it's as good a place to start as any. I'm not saying it's right, because I don't think there is something right, but... Miskits.
Yes.
How well do you know the Aerem?
I've read it frequently, but with my wear mentally, I find more and more of it eludes me with every waking moment of every waking day.
This might be an odd question, but do you remember any passages where it mentions an underground lake?
I'm straining at the best of my mind's abilities. It sounds familiar, but...
It's just there was a picture of it on the monument just outside the city.
It sounds familiar, but...
On the Ark?
I can't recall where that may occur.
Do I trust that this guy
If
is actually,
I-
doesn't remember stuff about that?
Roll an insight check.
I'm playing such a trusting character despite having a very good insight.
I need to stop putting my,
Brenda's just not trusting this
proficiency
at all.
thingy in insight.
As far as you can tell, yes.
That's
I'm
5. Okay, great.
Now, if I may ask you a question. Where do you believe dead things go?
The ground.
Heaven. Or one of them anyway. An afterlife.
Why bother asking? We're all going to find out soon enough.
Meridian.
I believe my time is soon due and the clock will strike midnight. Rather quickly now.
I had a friend who told me that wherever people go, you know, if you're talking about afterlife or whatever you want to talk about, then doesn't really matter where they go, really. Some like to believe that there's a wonderful paradise or, you know, chance to see loved ones who've also passed on, but he always said that wherever they go, there's still part of them here with, you know, the rest of the earth and the world, and it's part of the world around it. It returns to it, and in return, the people still remember you. So that's where you go. You never really leave if people remember you. Well, that's what my friend used to say.
And what if I'm forgotten?
Well, of course you'll be forgotten. Everyone is one day. I honestly,
No
there's
one's that
nothing more
important.
you can do than make peace with it.
Why do you ask?
Sometimes questions plague the dying mind like a festering rot. Pieces of the conscience that want otherwise, but
Well, do you have any others?
other consciousnesses.
Other questions?
Well, we all have questions, and I suppose I should become an adult one day and reason further and to know the reality of it all.
Well, this is a personal belief of mine anyway. I'm probably one who falls, though I don't exactly know, on the truth of the afterlife anyway. It's what I've always wanted it to be like, is nice and relaxing. Like the feeling of huddling up next to a fireplace with family. So I hope that you get something like that anyway. Something homely.
Oh, guess we'll never know.
That's the whole point. If you...
What more can I provide my services for?
Well, I did have one more question, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Seeing as this book wants us to go in the direction, is there anything more you can tell us where it mentions the place that best resembles the Ropin Keep? Any more information, that things we need to look out for, dangers we'll face, or if we do decide to go there?
Try not to be too forgetful.
What?
It's the things you hold closest to your heart that are like daggers.
Oh boy.
Jeez. Okay.
If you lose track of them, they might hurt.
I also had a question.
Ask away.
What's your favorite part of the Aerem?
I remember when my father was still alive. He'd come to me on the old attic chamber, on the little bed I still slept in. It was dusty, but it had a fragment of colour to its sheets, something quite rare here. He'd come and sit at bed's end, on the little wooden railing, if you will, that kept me contained when dreams would plague the mind. It'd read to me. It'd read to me, and I never understood the words he read. They were in a language he otherwise never spoke. Long forgotten whispers of the Aerem. There's something beautiful to the ignorant bliss of childlike not knowing, of hearing those words and failing to comprehend them, yet feeling their emotions nevertheless. Sometimes I wonder Sometimes I wonder whether forgetting is merely memories that have died, that have passed away the way my father did. The last verse he read to me was 444 exactly. It's a verse where it speaks about the strings of fate, and to be real with you, though I never once was a weaver, I considered learning how strings entangled itself. Every time I took upon that verse, I was intrigued by ropes and knots and strings. But never once could I get myself to pick up those crafts.
A weaver?
What is, I guess you wouldn't have it memorized, would you?
I don't believe I'll get quite far.
Simon,
Mm-hmm.
is the concept of a weaver something that we would know about?
I mean,
or is that like a new thing?
weavers are people that do weaving.
No,
What about
I know that.
gods?
I meant in terms of
yeah.
the strings of fate, which is clearly what he's talking about.
I mean, that's actually undefined here. But no, weaving the strings of fate is not. Weavers in that regard is not something you'd have heard about.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Not to change the subject, but Simon, quick question.
Yes.
The tubers that we found were called water pomegranate.
Yeah.
Do we know that that's the actual canon name?
I believe it's been mentioned, yeah.
Good. In which case, we didn't hasn't really been paying attention to the last part of the question, and instead goes up to Ms. Kits and goes, why is it called a water pomegranate? Do you know what a pomegranate is?
I believe some of our old natural records have depictions of them. Just a type of sweet fruit who carries within it, I believe it is seeds. Perhaps it is something else which are edible. I believe, though, its precise nature eludes me.
Well, that's the thing. It's just that there's so many parts of this place that aren't just relics of a previous civilization, but a core example is the language. There's parts of the language that it implies that it's outdated, and it developed from a time, when stuff was aplenty, and yet for all known knowledge, the dusts have fallen for all time. You say there's records of... I don't know. I need to think on this. Sorry for asking you that. It's just... there's so many things that don't make sense.
Is there anything more I can help you with?
I think we've got everything we came for this time. Amber pats. She can't see still, so she's probably like talking to a different wall. Well, she can hear at least. I'm gonna say she's perceptive enough, but she pats her bag slightly where she has that little book she picked up earlier on dreaming, and it's just.
If you could recommend me some book about the history of this place in its, general entirety, just the most well documented general history about not only the Dolian Waste, but Rien and everything else. Something for me to read in my own time. That'd be great.
Do you wish more recent histories or old ones or
Old ones. I don't need to know about, the rise and fall of the blah-de-blah dynasty or anything. I just need to know about general history that dates back as early as you can. How the people of this place came to be here, documentation on whether or not the ashes always fell or the cataclysm that caused it. As much as you can find.
the things you're stating now, the oldest general history and when the dusts began, those aren't the same time. You understand that, right?
What do you mean?
Well, some of our... Well, I'd like to think, though not everyone dares agree, that some of our works predate the dusts.
Well, any works that predate the dust would also be much appreciated. I need to make sense of when this place, if this place ever, changed from the name of Toril to Rien, or if this place is recognised as something different in its entirety. If this place is recognised as something different, that implies that, this place is separate from the place that we're from, in distance. Whereas if this implies that it's just a matter of time and it's always been referred to this by a separate name, then only the language distinguishes it, nothing else. Then it implies that this is purely displaced by time of some sort. Which opens up a whole new kettle of worms. So anything on that aspect.
I shall have it brought to you as soon as I can find it.
I hope you understand we're just trying to make sense of how we fit into this place and how this place fits into what we know. Because if we can work out what Rien actually is, then that will give us a better...
Excuse my old age. Which of you asked about the old ones?
That'd be me.
And me originally, but probably for very different reasons.
Alright. My brain is failing me as I speak. He's clearly straining his mind into something. I remember, he says a moment later. Remember. I do have an old tome that I've never successfully deciphered in a language unfamiliar to me.
You do?
I must warn you. It is alive. And it hungers for blood.
The dust?
For blood.
How much blood?
I think any amount of blood is way too much blood.
That is...
You know, you gotta give a little before you get some.
Its thirsts cannot be contained.
This feels like a very bad idea.
This is a terrible idea.
Sure, where'd you get this tome from?
It has been in my possession ever since my father died, and in his when his did. And it goes back a lot of generations.
Is that, what's kept behind the padlocked door?
An observant eye you have.
It's where they keep all the best stuff.
Where they keep the stuff they don't want you to see.
Exactly, Amber.
Where they keep the things that kill you.
It's not the best stuff!
So really don't think you should be trusting a book that's hungering for your blood. Or anything for that matter.
I agree with Senna, and I don't always agree with Senna's paranoia, but right now it is very justified.
Well, we can just take a small look, can't we?
Going to lie to you.
I feel like this is a terrible idea. You shouldn't...
You've already got one novel issue.
That's a really good pun.
Yeah, I'm...
That's a really good pun.
Yeah, it's a very good pun. Damn it.
No.
Miskits.
Yes.
Why are you mentioning this tome alongside asking about the old ones?
Because its cover is literally the words "old ones" in charred blood.
And have you given blood to it before?
That is a question I will refuse to answer.
Oh, you have. That's what that means.
It's a terrible answer.
Why don't you want to answer it?
Amber is
Because
gonna roll
it does
insight.
not concern you.
Can Amber roll insights on why he doesn't want to answer the question? I don't think I need to, but...
You can? Yeah.
Okay, rolling insight. Oh. I rolled a nat 1, but then I re-rolled it to a 6. That's...
It's a
great.
bit hard to read. It's an 11 total, mind you, with the
Yeah, it's
sixes.
11 total.
It's a bit hard to read. It
Especially because I cannot see his face.
seems like there's more to this than you've been let on, than you've been shared. This is... Whatever this book thing is a complicated story in and of itself. That much is clear.
Miskits. You've been really helpful. I have a trick where I should be able to read whatever I put my eyes to. So
How
maybe
do
we
you do
could...
that?
Maybe we could help each other out. I'm sure you want to know what the book says.
I believe I'd rather remain an ignorant child.
You're very old.
Very wise. Tenacity, you really shouldn't be reading something that might be maddened with bloodlust.
I'm going to agree with Senna again. This is a terrible idea.
I'm just
Whatever
going
Could
to
be our-
repeat that it's a terrible idea.
those
But it could be our only way of understanding what this place even is, what these old ones are.
If it has a
Exactly.
hunger, it
What-
might
how
have a
are the-
mind of its own.
How are the old ones immediately I guess they are.
Whatever that book contained. Is information whose weight is heavier than any shoulder can bear. You've been warned.
I guess the biggest question is who wrote it then?
Or what?
I think if any book is written by a what, it is not a book you should be reading.
Amber.
Right.
In the
Quite
terms of
narrow-minded,
eldritch
isn't it?
monstrosities.
Okay.
You.
Now I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one.
Mm-hmm. It's a little disappointing, actually.
What?
Oh,
I just mean from a...
how about we try and solve your first book issue before we add another volume.
I'm still trying to make sense of how it, consumes blood. Does it have teeth? Does it just like bite you, or does
You
it?
could just soak it up.
Wait a second.
Are you going to feed your bug blood?
Tenacity, please do not feed the
Tenacity!
blood. Please do not.
It could work.
It could also not.
I should at least try.
What are you talking
No,
about?
you shouldn't.
Tenacity's thinking of making a terrible decision.
An
Oh, so nothing new
informed
then.
experimental decision.
If it's experimental, it's not informed.
I personally think Tenacity should be allowed to do whatever he wants.
See?
Not if it could
Icarus
put
understands.
himself or other people in danger.
I would never put other people in danger.
I
You're
think
just putting
You're
yourself
not the
in
first to
danger.
have said that.
Tenacity is completely, allowed to put himself in danger. I think it's well within anyone's right to put themselves in danger. As long as we're in a separate room, as long as we're all in a separate
Tenacity's like
room,
nodding
Tenacity goes in,
sagely
reads a
to
book.
this.
Looking back and forth, like, she understands where Meridian is coming from. Tenacity absolutely has the right and choice, but it does not mean she should encourage or support it. It is stupid and a terrible idea.
Oh, how are
I'm
we
not
supposed
gonna-
to ever find anything out if we purposefully blind ourselves to things?
Exactly.
From the way I look at it, this place has forgotten so much about previous civilizations, including us, and all the names that we give them. So surely it makes sense that this book is most likely written in a language that we might know. We're the only ones who have a chance of reading it, and if there is some grand fate that people from across time are supposed to come here and help this place, surely it would make sense that people who have the best chance of reading this book should then read this book. No? Am I wrong?
No, Meridian, I agree with you.
I think I warned you
There
once.
is a creaking of metal as Miskets lets go of the lever they've been holding down, seemingly with force all this time, groaning as they do so. The portcullis begins creaking as it's slowly lowered.
Tenacity, back near when we first met, I gave you a warning. I said that magic was like a river. Please don't go over the waterfall.
I'd like to get over to
But-
Miskit and make sure he's alright, because he seems to be losing his grip and in pain.
He's been holding down a heavy lever for a while, but you are on the other side of... You are inside of the room that's currently locking down. There's a
Alright, we're
portcullis.
leaving. We're leaving.
There's a portcullis closing between you and Miss Ketz right now.
All right. I'm just going to pull the closest person to me out.
Okay.
There's a portcullis between you.
It's already down.
It's going down. Yeah, you have to pull someone under the portcullis, which is very dangerous because if they get stuck under the spikes, it hurts. Getting impaled by a portcullis is very painful.
Is he doing this on purpose?
No, it is very clearly accidental. It's very clearly the strain of having to hold down this lever. There's force and weight behind it.
All right, Senna's gonna go and deal with that lever now, if at all possible.
Yeah, can you roll me a strength check?
Yeah. Would I have? No, I wouldn't have enough time. It's gonna be bad. Here we go. That is a 6. I knew it was gonna be bad.
That's good enough, because Miss Ketz is still trying. So, with the help of Miss Ketz, you can get the lever down and hold it at least stable for the time being to raise the portcullis up. It's slightly shuddery at the top, and the metal creaks and groans.
In response to Amber's thing about the river, Tenacity would just look at her. I forgot if he put his prestidigitation back up on his eyes. It's not relevant.
I think
He just says,
I bullied him for it.
"Oh yeah." Well, maybe the best magic is at the bottom of the pool.
That's the kind of magic you'll drown for.
I'm assuming everyone's going to slip out of the room you were in.
Yeah, I think we will.
Right. The portcullis closes behind you as Miss Ketz lets go and Senna does too. The room is closed off again. Miss Ketz then slowly begins walking with their metallic walking cane past the group, having not spoken a single word. Back towards where you came from.
The Aerem doesn't ever mention that we should read this book. Does it mention the book? Or how are we to say that whenever the Aerem mentions the phrase Old Ones, it's not referring to the book titled Old Ones?
I think the Aerem is not going to give every little detail of everything that will ever happen. Can the Aerem tell me what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight? Please don't tell me that's verse 248.
It's got 70,000 pages. If it doesn't, I'll be disappointed.
In that case, I believe disappointment is your fate.
Oh, does it say that in the book?
Oh.
Miss Getz continues in a long hallway. It's a walk back, a pretty reasonable one.
Okay, if we just get a quick look at the book. We don't have to make any sacrifices yet.
If I am to show you and release this book, you are to deal with it. Because getting it back into its containment is a job I struggled with in my younger, finer days. Let alone now that I am withered, old, and dead.
You're not dead yet. Right?
Well, we've seen Stranger.
Are you dead?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
I think he's joking, but I think Amber will be just sus enough that I will insight check
Can I
this.
insight check that?
Yeah.
That's the worst possible thing I can roll, outside of 2 natural ones, is the natural 2. It's okay, because Senna also
It's
rolled a nat
perfect.
2. We both have +5 insight, and we both rolled nat 2s.
It is
It's been
impossible to tell.
bad roll.
It is impossible to tell.
Our characters are silly.
You reach the long spiral staircase, and Amber, you begin to see the faint glints of
Can
candle.
see?
Yes! The faint glints of candlelight shining down from above.
I know, I was aware of what you were going to say. I'm apologizing. I was merely jumping for joy.
Reach upstairs back into the hall where you'd been, the little altar with a single candle burning on it, the stairwell upwards, and the hall with the 2 glass hemispheres and rows of bookshelves. And I believe that's where we'll leave off this session.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if Amber gets to do one last thing, she will say thank you to Icarus for holding her hand.
Any time, bro. He doesn't say that, obviously.
Words
words to that effect.
Alright. Yeah. That's the session, I guess.
I believe that is the session, yes.
Wow.
That was fun.
Every single session, I just end up with more and more questions. Isn't it insane? Just want
Good!
some answers. I thought this would give me some answers, but it's giving me more questions.
Technically, we have the 70,000 page book of answers.
Listen, I am.
And now you don't trust it.
I am here to make it a complicated story. This isn't gonna be some 2 episodes and you're done with it. This is
Apparently not. We're on
this is
session 17.
This is a convoluted horror game, and there is things that are gonna happen that you can't even imagine.
Oh boy.
Alright, I feel like on that note, we'll end off today's session. And, yeah. Bye!
See you next week.
Bye.